Russia, once proud to call itself the energy powerhouse of the world, is now staring at a crisis so severe that even the Kremlin can no longer hide it. Gasoline lines stretch for dozens of cars. Refineries blaze uncontrollably for days on end. Entire towns are stripped of drinking water just to fight fires at oil facilities. And ordinary Russians are now forced to spend nearly 20% of their monthly wages just to fill a single tank of gas. This is not a temporary glitch. It is the unraveling of the very system that once defined global energy security. And here's the chilling truth. This disaster will not remain within Russia's borders. What is unfolding today could shift the balance of power in Europe, shake the foundations of global energy markets, and perhaps even accelerate the collapse of Russia itself. It feels eerily familiar. In the final years of the Soviet Union, no major Western think tank predicted its sudden collapse. On the outside, the USSR appeared stable, unshakable. Yet inside, economic decay, resource mismanagement, and denial at the highest levels were eating the empire alive. Today, history is repeating itself. Modern Russia, often labeled USSR 2.0, is stumbling down the same doomed path. Despite overwhelming evidence, many still refuse to acknowledge what is happening before our eyes. Russia is racing toward another civilizational breakdown. And the clearest sign of this? Its fuel crisis. For months, Ukraine has targeted Russia's most vulnerable assets, oil refineries and transport infrastructure. Unlike in earlier years, these strikes are no longer isolated blows that facilities can quickly repair. Instead, Ukraine now returns again and again to the same refineries, ensuring that the damage is permanent. Consider the Ryazan refinery, responsible for 5% of Russia's national capacity. Today, half of its processing capability is gone. The Novokuybishevsk plant, accounting for another 3%, has been forced to shut down after repeated hits. Meanwhile, the massive Volgograd refinery and plants across the Samara region have stopped receiving crude altogether. These are not dents, they are crippling blows, and the effects are being felt across the Russian economy. When a refinery erupts into flames, it cannot be disguised as maintenance or brushed off with propaganda. Some of these infernos have burned for 3, even 5 days straight, lighting up the sky and visible from satellites orbiting high above. Russian firefighters, mocked now as being as ineffective as their air defenses, cannot contain the blazes. The reason? Extinguishing refinery fires requires specialized Western foams and chemicals, not simple water. But sanctions have cut Russia off from these vital imports. In desperation, local authorities have diverted drinking water from towns, leaving residents without supplies just to combat refinery fires. In the Rostov region, an entire town lost its water access because every drop was redirected to a burning plant. Yet, even with such sacrifices, the flames keep returning. The consequences for ordinary Russians are devastating. Across the country, drivers queue for hours at gas stations, only to find the pumps empty when they finally reach the front of the line. In Russia's far east, near Vladivostok, 13 time zones away from Ukraine, the situation is even worse. Gasoline prices have soared to nearly 100 rubles per litre. Do the math. With nearly 4 litres in a gallon, that's over $4 per gallon, similar to US prices. But here's the difference. Russia's median monthly salary is only about 20% of the American average. In many rural regions, wages drop as low as $140 per month. That means a single full tank of gas can swallow nearly a fifth of a worker's monthly income. Truck drivers, taxi operators, farmers, many simply cannot afford to keep working. At some stations, handwritten signs are posted, "No fuel, none at any price." This is not mere inconvenience, it is suffocation of the economy itself. And the timing could not be worse. Russia is in the middle of its harvest season. Farmers depend on affordable fuel to power machinery, transport crops, and sustain production. Without it, they cannot bring their harvest to market. Bankruptcies are spreading through the countryside. Farmers are losing their land to banks unable to repay loans. Tractors and combines sit idle, and when farmers cannot operate, Russia's food supply, already strained by sanctions, begins to collapse. What started as an energy problem is mutating into an agricultural disaster. So why are these refinery attacks proving so devastating? The answer lies in Russia's dependence on Western technology. Modern refineries rely on intricate equipment, hydrocracking units, catalytic reformers, high-pressure compressors, most of which were designed and built by companies like Shell, UOP, and Haldor Topsoe. But since 2022, Russia has been cut off from receiving spare parts, critical software, and chemical catalysts, materials that must be replaced every 1 to 3 years. In desperation, Moscow has turned to Chinese substitutes. But these replacements are far less effective, poorly adapted to advanced refining, and often incompatible with Russian infrastructure. Swapping out Western parts for Chinese alternatives frequently requires redesigning entire systems, something Russia cannot easily do under sanctions. The result? Every Ukrainian drone strike does not simply cause temporary damage. It sets facilities back months, sometimes years. Some plants may never return to full capacity. Russia's geography now works against it. Most of its refining capacity sits in its European core, while demand is spiking in the Far East. Fuel must travel thousands of kilometers across vulnerable pipelines and railroads. Each stretch is a potential bottleneck, each segment an opportunity for sabotage. Protecting this vast network is virtually impossible. And as Ukraine's drone range expands, some now reaching 1,000 kilometers and newer designs threatening Moscow's mega refineries, Russia faces a nightmare scenario. Every refinery is a target, and no air defense can guard them all. This is Russia's Achilles heel. An empire built on energy wealth is being undone by its very size. Ukraine hasn't stopped at refineries. It has also struck export terminals at Luga near St. Petersburg and Novorossiysk in the south, temporarily halting shipments. Even the Druzhba pipeline, the artery carrying oil from Russia to Belarus and onto Europe, has been hit. And these pipelines aren't just about exports. They are vital for distributing fuel internally. Without them, Russia itself runs dry. In effect, Ukraine is turning Russia's greatest weapon, its energy dominance, into its greatest liability. So how has the Kremlin responded? By cooking the books. Russia's official statistics bureau claims the average price of gasoline is just 63 rubles per liter. But on the ground, the real prices range between 80 and 120 rubles, depending on the region. The government is deliberately underreporting inflation, trying to pacify the public with fake numbers. But illusions cannot mask reality for people waiting in kilometer-long fuel lines. Service station boards change their prices hourly. Videos of drivers shouting, fighting, and recording empty pumps flood Russian social media. The illusion is collapsing in real time. And this crisis does not stop at Russia's borders. The effects are spreading outward. European nations still tied to Russian energy are feeling the squeeze. Hungary, under Viktor Orban, already the poorest country in the EU, is facing rising anger as shortages and volatility worsen. Slovakia, under Robert Fico's Kremlin-friendly government, faces similar struggles. Even Belarus, Moscow's closest ally, is suffering under disrupted supply. Russia's reputation as an energy superpower is being shredded. Instead of wielding oil and gas as tools of leverage, Moscow is now reduced to begging its own people to endure shortages while its allies complain. The pattern is undeniable. In the 1980s, the Soviet Union masked its decline with propaganda, doctored statistics, and denial. By the time the truth became impossible to ignore, the collapse was sudden, shocking, and irreversible. Today, Russia follows the same script: burning refineries, empty fuel stations, false statistics, desperate citizens. All the signs point to a system that cannot hold. And yet, just as before, many in the West downplay the severity of this crisis. But denial does not change reality. Russia's fuel crisis is more than a domestic inconvenience. It is the cracking foundation of an empire built on oil and gas. The burning plants, the skyrocketing prices, the endless queues, the bankrupt farmers, they are not isolated events. They are symptoms of systemic collapse. The Kremlin can manipulate statistics, blame maintenance issues, or scramble to import substandard parts from China. But none of that changes the fact that its oil industry, the very engine of the Russian state, is bleeding out. The question is no longer if this crisis will transform Russia. The question is how it will reshape the world. Because when the energy giant falls, the shockwaves will not stop at its borders. That's the story. Russia's greatest strength is becoming its fatal weakness, and the ripple effects could alter the global balance for years to come. Thank you for watching. This has been MGE. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to MGE for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world.